And good morning. It is Tuesday, August 1st, just after 9 a.m. My name is Ryan Belmore. I'm the owner and publisher of What's Up Noop. And we are taking a different approach or a unique topic or something I want to explore. The governor has been back in April, did an education address at the Boys and Girls Club of Newport County in the gymnasium. And he announced an entire initiative. And the initiative is to help Rhode Island reach Massachusetts education levels by 2030. And a lot of it was, he said he was implementing it. We're here in Newport for a reason. Newport is going to be a model for success. The City of Newport, Mayor Xaykham was the first one to sign on to it. And they're looking to implement it in every school and city in the state of Rhode Island. They have 31 who have signed on. And we are going to have kind of a roundtable approach on this topic and education in the City of Newport, what the governor's big plan means for those in Newport, as well as students, parents, families, and the entire city. And joining me is Mayor of Newport, Xay. Xay, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Ryan?
Good. And we have Newport School Superintendent Colleen Jermain.
Good morning, everyone.
2 weeks in a row. It is a pleasure to see you.
Nice to see you.
And
nice to be here.
Governor Dan McKee also joins us. Governor, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning,
nice to see you. I was just saying, Governor, that back on April 12th, you made your announcement, your education address here in Newport. And you said, we're here in Newport for a reason. Newport is going to be a model for success. Mayor Xaykham and the City of Newport was among the first to sign on. And I thought it would be an interesting way to talk about this by everything I've read about it and seen about it is it's going to take everybody to get this done and to get this moving forward. So I thought we would kind of bring everybody out together and talk about how this is going to work. So Governor, maybe you can recap or give us the elevator speech that everybody's going to understand on a nice summer day of what this means, what this is.
Well, it's important, and we couldn't do it without the leadership in Newport with the mayor and the superintendent, that's for sure. And we're duplicating that that team effort throughout the state of Rhode Island. So on April 12th, we made the announcement at a Boys and Girls Club in Newport, talking about three main goals that we would work together to achieve, which is one, which we would meet or exceed Massachusetts levels on reading and math by 2030. That we would increase our attendance rates significantly around the state of Rhode Island, and that we would make sure we took advantage of all the federal dollars through the FAFSA applications and making sure that we're maximizing that opportunity for families. Since then, April 12th, we're approaching, I think it's 33 communities now. We just heard 2 more communities are going to come on in the next few weeks. So that's 33%. About 93% of the state of Rhode Island is represented through their municipal leadership and partnering with their school districts, with the higher ed, with their universities like in Newport, which I'm sure Mayor will talk about with Salve and CCRI. So we got an aggressive strategy right now in the state, and we just are about ready to announce the first distribution of about $4 million for programming money. And the last one I would say, which I think is going to be the icing on the cake here, is that we've been able to work our way through the Treasury Department, U.S. Treasury Department, and our General Assembly, and we'll be allocating $80 million to create learning centers through all the communities that have signed the compacts that want them, and then we'll be focused for 5 years on learning, on jobs, employment, and as well as health. So this is moving a lot faster than I anticipated, to tell you the truth. But Newport has led the charge, and the mayor is showing that leadership. But to have Colleen on board as well with the school department, that really is so critical. And as you said, and I'll end my short comments by saying that we know that coming out of COVID, that there's a learning recovery, a mental health recovery, and we also know that in order to address that, it's an all hands on deck strategy. We can't expect that inside of a school day that we can actually make the progress that we need, not because the schools are not working hard. It's just a it's a factor of time right now. We have to put more time in. And our strategy right now is initially to add 1 million extra learning hours out of school day a year in the state of Rhode Island through these partnerships. Right.
Mayor, Superintendent, Newport was, the first, the announcement was the first to sign on. When you heard from the governor's office that this program was coming, what made you say, yes, this is for us. We need to get on this. We need to be first. We need to show the rest of the state how we can be successful here. Mayor?
Well, it was a no-brainer out of the gate for a very simple reason, which is that we have really great kids in the city of Newport. And these kids are overcoming incredible challenges every single day. The majority of our kids are coming from single-parent households. The majority of our kids are people of color. A third are coming from households where English is not the primary language. 2/3 are qualifying for federally free and reduced lunch. And you go in and you meet these kids, and they are absolutely incredible. But if we're going to help them reach their full potential, we have to realize that education is not just schools. It's an entire learning system, and the entire community has a stake and role to play in making sure that our kids get the opportunities to succeed that they deserve. When you step back and you look at the city of Newport, not only do we have great kids, but we have really great teachers in the school system. And the teachers are at the core of helping this whole thing ultimately work. And then finally, we have a really great community. Almost every single community nonprofit has some initiative that looks at education. So when you step back and you look at the fact that we have these really great elements of what should make for a wonderful learning system in this community, it's a matter of trying to connect the dots in a few areas that can actually move the needle in the places that are measured by the state, like the test scores, like the FAFSA form execution rates. And so for us, looking at that background that we have and looking at the very special opportunity we have with a superintendent who I think is one of the best in the state, we thought this is a no-brainer. We've got to make a full push, make sure the governor knows that not just the Newport Public Schools, but the entire community of Newport is on board with helping these kids reach their potential.
Superintendent, I was going to say, what does this
I
mean?
was going to say, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I'm in my negotiations. Maybe I should bring that up.
I'll make sure I clip that and send it to you, Superintendent. What does it mean for the schools? Is it adding, obviously, I will say this, but I don't think I have to. You're always looking to improve education, Superintendent, and that is one of your ultimate goals. Is this a whole lot of work? What does this mean from the top down in the school department?
So I have to say, all the way from the beginning, when the governor made his state address, he brought up the visual about the person that goes and does the painting, and not today. That rang with me. And I actually that night, I think that night or the next morning, sent an email because he gave that cry for it. And if you're interested and you want to improve education in the state of Rhode Island, let us know. So I did. I reached out and I told my team I reached out. And Elizabeth from his office got in touch with me. And we were in from the beginning because just the visual of having the whole community, everyone's making education a priority, is, I believe, the message we really needed to hear. And we really need to lead with that. It isn't, and thank you, Governor, for saying that, and Mayor, it's not just the 6.5 hours in the building. It has to continue throughout. And we have to let our children know, which we do, we have great children and young adults, that we are here to support them, to build them, to be their very best. And all the learning experiences they have, whether it's in the classroom and then they apply it outside, or whether it's in the classroom and then they discover some passion within themselves. This is an us thing. It's a we thing. And I love the fact that everyone on the screen right now is recognizing and understanding how hard our teachers, we have great teachers, work and all that, but it takes more than that. It takes a community. And this is what I love about the messaging. It's about community. We are as strong as our weakest link, as they always say. And if we are strong together on education, I truly believe we're going to see some great results here in Newport.
And thank you, Superintendent. And Alice writes in, and perhaps anybody can take this that wants to, or maybe from their perspective. But, I think in the messaging, it might be tough for somebody to pick up exactly. Alice writes in, what exactly does the initiative mean? What does it precisely involve relative to school children?
I'll start. For us, it's before and after school programming that we have with our community partners that is focused on extended learning time, not just the 6.5 hours. Then we purposely, and we have been doing this for a few years with the R3 program here in Newport, but we're taking specific metrics and we're measuring those metrics, and we're using the same software, Alice, in our schools as we are with our community partners. So we have data sharing agreements in which our partners can have conversations with the classroom teachers and connect that outside the school building experience with the in-school, so that we're working together to help the child to improve specifically in his math and reading levels. So that's one thing I can share with you. And then we're expanding that partnership with, as it was mentioned earlier by the governor, with Salve Regina University and CCRI, where our students are learning more about the importance of post-secondary education, about the importance they can, while they're in high school, earn these credits. And as the governor shared with one of our students last week, the importance of improving those test scores is important for their earnings going forward. And if you're doing better in these areas and you're applying yourself and disciplining yourself, you're going to do better as an individual going forward. But specifically, it's working with partners, looking at data, and having bi-monthly meetings.
Governor, it's not an after-school program. This is a 365 program. That's why it's right in the name, right?
Yes, out of school time, and it's supporting that. And I think the question's a good question, and really the answer is it's very, very difficult to actually define this effort. It's a culture issue as much as anything else. We're looking to figure out a way, and we have a meeting right now, a growing number of what we're calling a global education meeting now in the state. So we got well over 100 people joining us on a virtual meeting later today with municipal leaders that have signed on the compact, leaders like Colleen in terms of education. It's a full-blown effort globally. We have higher ed with Shannon Gilkey, right? We've got K through 12, or pre-K through 12 with our Commissioner Infante Green. We got the CTE board chair. We got NEA's present. The AFT is present in those meetings. DLT, Secretary of Housing is going to be engaged there. This is an all-in effort in the state. And the goal right now, and what we're going to be talking about today, Ryan, and for your listeners, is let's figure out a way to reach every household in the state of Rhode Island so that they believe that learning is a priority each and every day of the year. That's our next effort, as we're assembling these ideas and these programs and allocating resources to communities like Newport right now, and asking the communities as well to step up and to organize as the mayor has with staffing issues or really support on the municipal side. But to define it is going to be difficult to do that, because where we are today is not where we were a year ago on this conversation. And we started this discussion a year ago. Where we're going to be a year from now is going to be a different spot than we are today, because as you bring in more and more energy into why is learning important? Why would a household in the state of Rhode Island it be important? And the other piece that I want to mention to your listeners is that this is not just about the kids that are going to our district schools. This is a overall strategy to say that learning is important in every household in the state of Rhode Island every single day. Not only for the young people that may attend our public schools in Newport or a charter school or a mayoral academy, or they may be homeschooled, right? Or those kids may be going to private schools or parochial schools, or they may even go in school out of state, but they live in our community. And so we want to make sure that every single household, whether you have kids or you don't have kids, engages and embraces this notion that learning is important and should be a priority in every household every single day of the year. And the last thing is, this is a multi-year strategy. So we've set a goal in 2030. We have a Rhode Island 2030 plan that is now being updated after about a year and a half. It's a working document. This is going to be part of that Rhode Island 2030 plan. So this is an engagement of the entire state. And as we call this intentionally, a global education meeting now. So not only is it about multiple communities in the state of Rhode Island, but also we're talking nationally right now. The NGA, the National Governors Association, is looking at what we're doing to identify this as one of those leading efforts in the country to address that learning recovery and the mental health recoveries that we have to work on. But also internationally, we're already starting to talk about how internationally we can share this effort in terms of learning on a 365-day with other countries that are in our International Economic Ambassador Program. So to define where we are right now, what I would say to the person that is asking that question, it is being shaped at the moment, the definition of this is and where we're going to go. But we've made so much progress in about 60 to 90 days. It's because of the Mayor Xay and the superintendent working on this and actually stepping in early on to create this leadership, which is really important here, this leadership that is going to drive this message in every household in the state of Rhode Island that learning is a priority every single day of the year.
I'm going to call it a community-wide effort to improve education. And I think that's a good way to summarize it. And you have the city on board, you have the school department on board. Of course, there are going to be resources available. And in a little bit, I want to talk about, when we talk about community, I feel like businesses and at all shapes and sizes can be getting involved to participate in this. But I'm wondering if we could talk about, we know what the long-term goal is to help Rhode Island reach Massachusetts education levels by 2030. Wondering if we could talk about short-term levels on, let's say, April 12th, 2024, we're a year in from the announcement, after the announcement. What do short-term goals look like that we know we're heading in the right direction? That this is a mayor?
Yeah, so Ryan, what we're looking for here, right, are making improvements specifically in the area of reading scores for Newport in the area of the percentage of FAFSA form fill-outs. That's the financial aid forms that help offer students the opportunity to pursue higher education at no cost oftentimes. And so Newport has one of the lowest rates of execution for FAFSA forms. We're looking to get that up from 44% to 50% over the next 2 years. On the topic of reading itself, we're looking to improve those scores by about 5 points each year. Right now, Newport's scoring a bit below 20% in terms of proficiency for students K through 4 on reading. And so we're looking to move that up by that increment. The way we're planning to proceed to do that is it's not a pilot test program, right? This is a proven program that Dr. Jermain noted earlier has been implemented in partnership with community nonprofits called Reading Reaps Rewards. This program itself was the result in part, or the new investment in that program was the result in part of a research report called the Sperling Report that was sponsored by the Van Buren Foundation in 2022 that looked at ways specifically that we can improve the outcomes of this program to help improve reading outcomes. That whole program, that whole plan is centered around working with Newport's public schools, specifically the teachers in the classroom, to use those data-driven metrics and tools that Dr. Jermain noted earlier to target those students that need the most help and to make sure we're tracking their progress and help throughout the course of the school year. And so it's going to be a very targeted approach, and that's the plan that we intend on executing on.
Superintendent, I imagine you would agree with all of those short-term, long-term goals, and that's something that you are tracking as often as you possibly can.
Right. We are looking at those, Ryan, and we are looking at I'll just say the numbers and monitoring them very carefully. We're also looking at the impact of the summer programs we have with our partners, which ones are keeping our students on track and avoiding a summer slide, and others that are actually improving. We have one program in particular that we've seen improvements in their reading levels. So we are watching those very carefully. In the FAFSA, we do have a community person helping us with that already. And we also have bilingual assistance as well. We also know we need to communicate earlier and clearer with those non-English speaking families. And we are already setting up clinics for them. I believe FAFSA comes online in December. So we've got some time, but we also need to get the messaging out there. So we plan on starting a messaging program between August and December 1.
And Ryan, what that'll look like is ultimately a dozen different community meetings with different organizations trying to reach into the community to make sure that we get people to fill out those FAFSA forms so they can take advantage of that federal aid that's available to help us get students in and through college. And so we're looking at partnering and working with organizations like Salve, like CCRI, like the Rhode Island Student Loan Authority, whose board I sat on for a number of years, to help them work with community organizations that are trusted partners, organizations like Connection Latina, Fab Newport, places that people trust and that understand how to work and specifically communicate with the communities that really should be taking advantage of these programs to make sure that kids' full potential is ultimately met.
And Ryan, let's talk a little globally here too. I mean, Newport is going to certainly achieve certain benchmarks here that are going to be critical to the state, but they're not alone. And in order for Rhode Island to lift up its overall outcomes, that means that every community needs to get involved, like Newport is, and that's why we're using Newport as this really this benchmark, this example of great leadership, and we're going to keep on building on that. I think later today we'll be making an announcement where Newport is going to get a good amount of those dollars, the first $4 million of monies that we're distributing through the GEAR money that our office had the authority to distribute. Governors throughout the country could choose how they're going to invest dollars to help with this learning recovery. But in Providence, for instance, so I think we know that the state has now intervened in the city of Providence schools, and so I'm taking a very active role on that and extending this thought process of the Learn365RI specifically in Providence as almost as the mayor, as a mayor, because you know, as a former mayor, I have been involved in this. So right now, actively, I visited not only CCRI last week in Newport to look at an out-of-school program that is fantastic on different types of technology, but I also attended in Providence schools where I asked that we would have out-of-school learning strategies this summer, getting it ahead of an advance of the programs that are going to follow in years to come. We have 900 elementary school students right now volunteering, those families, on a boot camp learning strategy that's focused on reading and math. Of course, it's got a lot of summer fun added into it. And there was 1,200 elementary school students, 900, over 900 middle school and high school students right now in Providence, as we speak right now, adding up those dollars. I mean, it's like we should probably have like a scale here of some sort, you know, where every hour that gets added, we're adding that hour up as we do like the national debt, you know, when it rolls up type of thing. But we should be adding those hours up. Hundreds of hours are happening right now of those million hours in combination with Newport and Providence right now alone. So when you start adding this cumulative effect, community by community, we have mayors and municipal leaders right now aggressively strategizing, whether it's in East Providence with Mayor De Silva, or it's down in Bristol with the Administrator Contente, or up in Lincoln with Administrator Gould. Around the state of Rhode Island, this is happening, and we duplicate each one of these things. But what's going to be really interesting, and I knew that we needed to not have a top-down governor jamming everything down into the local communities. We needed to have a bottom-up strategy, because each community is going to be able to put its little, signature on how they're going to approach this. But everybody's signing on to the same goal, and they're going to use different strategies based on their community, how to get there. But when you add it all together, this is where you're going to get the progress, significant progress, I really believe. Because of the nature of how each community is going to be, structuring strategies that are going to help their particular community.
Governor, when you mentioned funding, I know there was a good chunk in the budget last year on the state level. Will this also be using federal funds whatever we can get our hands on on this initiative?
Yes, and I think that we can be very creative, and I know the Rhode Island's been very good, and I know that the experience I've had is going to help bring in those resources that you just talked about. The $4 million was dollars that was federal dollars that governors were appropriated certain amounts. We were allocating it into this Learn365RI. An additional $4 million is going to be rolled out through RIDE because they're targeting towards the Learn365 with some funds that they had as well. One of the things that we have set up, which is going to be extremely helpful to the municipal leaders, is that we've structured a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is being headed up by, I think, one of the really strong innovators of public education in the state of Rhode Island, Jermain, who not only was a principal active in the Providence schools, but also he was the leader, the superintendent of the Blackstone Valley Prep Mayor Academy, which I started in the Blackstone Valley. So we're raising private dollars in addition to the federal dollars that is funding this organization. And then when we set that up, that's going to provide guidance to municipal leaders and that they're asking for it. So yes, and I'll say this is that not only are we seeking out sources of funding, which I think are critical to our efforts, but last Thursday I was in Washington, D.C., and I was at the education department with the innovation, a core group of the innovation division at the federal education department, right? Talking to them about exactly what we're doing here. And I believe that it's making, it's filtering that. Our message in Rhode Island is filtering through the DC Office of Education as we speak. And I believe that what we're doing is going to, federally, they got the same problem. Nationally, we got the same problem as we have in Newport, same challenge we have in Newport, the state of Rhode Island. The pandemic has caused an issue here in terms of learning recovery and mental health recovery that we cannot ignore. Education department reflected that in my conversation with them in DC last week. And I intentionally went and met with them to brief what we were doing, specifically talked about the mayor and the superintendent by name of what they're doing in their community. And so that we are going to bring in, any way we can bring in resources to help us achieve these goals. And I did say in my talk down in Newport at the Boys and Girls Club, it was kind of like a little take on JFK's shot to the moon, where he said we're going to be smart about how we spend the resources, but we're going to put the resources on the table to make this happen. So the President Kennedy put the resources on the table to land on the moon. We're going to put the resources forward to help us achieve these goals on or before 2030.
Superintendent, go ahead, Mayor.
I was going to say, Ryan, I just want to piggyback on something else here, right? The money and the resources are great, and I'm delighted to hear that Newport's well positioned to be in the queue on those funds. But it's also about that conversation being constant in what we talk about as a community, right? The schools and education is not something that is purely within the mandate of just the schools. Every single part of this community needs to be talking about education. And so whether you're a viewer here and you're thinking about donating to your favorite nonprofit, ask them, what do you do with public school students in Newport? What is that program? Tell me more about it. Can I contribute specifically towards it? Can I volunteer with it? If you see a public school student, or if you see any young person in the city of Newport, you should be getting them excited this time of year about heading back to school. Ask them if they're excited to be headed back to the classroom. Ask them what their favorite book is. Ask them what they're reading right now. If you see a high school student, or if you're a business owner who employs a couple high school students, ask them if they've been thinking about college and if they've filled out a FAFSA form. Talk to them about why that's so important. Education has to be something that we are all talking about, which is why I jumped into working on this issue right out of the gate, because it's important that we all take a stake in the kids in our community and making sure that they reach their full potential.
Excellent. And I want to wrap up with going around the room of how families, how people that don't have children in the public school system, how companies, how nonprofits can all get involved. And I'll have all of you answer that. But Superintendent, I just wanted to ask, somebody put it in the comments, you think we have a good baseline of where we're starting from, an accurate one? I know we're coming off of COVID and it's tough to tell exactly where people are with all of their scores, and but you're confident in where we're starting from this.
Well, I'm going to say this, the numbers are what the numbers are. Whether it's a good base, not a good base, Doesn't make any difference. We've all been through it. We lived it. And now we're coming out of the pandemic. And that's our starting point. So that's where we go from. And we continue rising up from there. It's a challenge. It's a big challenge. But I believe both the governor and the mayor just now, the importance of the conversations and getting into conversations with young people about education, about what their favorite book is, exactly as the mayor said, but keeping those conversations alive and important is huge. And just making that connection with a young person to help them understand, why am I going to school every day? And what is it I'm supposed to be doing when I'm there? So I think those conversations are key to moving forward. And for those that are not necessarily parents, we have an unbelievable Newport Public Ed Foundation, in which we do have quite a few people that are retired that have very good skills, as far as whether it's in the finance world, it's in the capital funding world, whatever. They're here and they want to help and support the schools. So I encourage anyone, if they have some free time or just want to get more involved, Newport Public Ed Foundation, absolutely. And we love volunteer readers with our little ones. So anytime you want to come and pick up a book, I have to say, having a bad day, go visit a kindergarten room. You'll just, it'll change your whole perspective on everything. So.
And Superintendent, it's funny you bring that up, because just as you said it, I think this is a great way to end the conversation. Jennifer wrote in and it said, is there a volunteer paid tutoring program that retired teachers can participate in, certified in other states, retired to Rhode Island? So Governor, let's kick it off with how, and let's wrap this up with, how can people get involved? How can people support it in any aspect of the community? What do you need?
I think that we need to really connect in with every household in the state of Rhode Island. So people who are listening in Newport that feel as though this is a very important effort should be contacting their mayor, their superintendent. They could contact our office as well. We certainly are taking a list of people who want to get involved, and we're letting local leadership know that these are people that really want to get engaged. I was in South Kingstown yesterday and talked about, I think it was Elizabeth, Colleen, was that Elizabeth, the young lady that we talked to last week? Yes. Yeah, and when I talked to them about the economic benefit here, they were floored. You're talking about raising incomes in the state of Rhode Island by over $2 billion if we are able to meet Massachusetts levels by 2030. So that, there's an economic reason. I happen to be all in with the young people, with Boys and Girls Club work in my life. I think that it's really important. So I just encourage everybody that's listening to really get engaged, as Mayor Xay said, so that we're starting to talk very positively about learning every single day. That's an advantage to our young people that live in our states, our family that lives in the state, and also economically, it's going to provide a better future if we're able to accomplish these goals.
So that young lady's name is Grace Rochelle.
Grace.
And she's a tennis star, and she is already contacting me, asking me, what am I doing? What am I doing? What do I need to do? So she's ready. She's willing and ready. So she wants, young people want to be involved, especially at the high school level.
She was great.
Well, as well as helping spread the news and report on it and bring the information to people, as a business owner, certainly here to help in any possible way. I just want to be an example and show people this is how easy it is. All of you know we're here to help in any possible way. Superintendent, Mayor, how can people help on the city level get involved? And Newport is the model that is going to be brought here all across the state. So what can we do to put us on the map and make us a success?
Well, Ryan, I can see from looks like a slight sunburn there. You enjoyed Folk Fest, right?
Yes. I didn't see the governor there last weekend. Hoping to see him at Newport Jazz Festival, but we'll see.
I was at polo matches. I was at dog shows. This weekend I'll be in Newport.
Okay.
That's the plan.
All right.
Well, I'll say this, Ryan. You think about all these great events that Newport hosts, and the key to those events working, whether it's the ocean race or the music festivals or all the regattas that we host, are all the volunteers that we have, right? An incredible army of volunteers comes out and puts on these great events. So think about the power of that army of volunteers. If they are instead dispatched to help on education on a day-to-day basis between these great events. If there's a nonprofit that you are passionate about that you work with, ask them about the educational programs that they help support. I have been blown away by the fact that almost every single nonprofit in our community has some program that reaches out and works with kids. So think about whether there's an opportunity for you to volunteer and support those types of organizations. I'll give you one example, right? My friend Keith Grove volunteers with the Adult Community School, Newport Community School, specifically with their program that helps people get their GEDs, and he tutors in the rather difficult subject of math. And to hear the number of students who went up to receive their degrees at the Newport Community School's graduation this year, citing specifically the impact of Mr. Grove on their education, was absolutely moving. Anybody in Newport has the ability to jump in and help, not just people who are retired from the profession of education. And so I encourage you to reach out to those organizations in the city that you know and that you love already, and ask if there's a way for you to help on educational initiatives that they have.
And Superintendent, you know this well, but every time you come on every month, I say, tell us something good. And I think it is important that we keep our eye on the things that matter. But I think a lot of our attitude, as well as our tone, and making sure, hey, if we're challenging something or bringing up, somewhere where we can improve in education, that we also are taking the time to recognize how beautiful Broadway is with all of the graduates' photos, and how proud, or the sign in front of City Hall, or where all the graduates are going. I think sometimes if we could just stop and think about, there's so much good going on, that gets back to the students, and that matters a whole lot in schools. I know that's just one way, one very easy way. If we just think about what we say matters, and it gets back to the students and affects their attitude.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you're right, Ryan. That's what it's all about. Those students and the children we have in our schools, and every day they're feeling valued, and that people care, and people want them to have a great education and a great educational system. And I think as adults, we sometimes have to remind ourselves they have ears, they listen. So how we speak about education, about our children, matters. And we always, in our words, have to encourage them to do better and to do their best. But we also recognize that this is a team effort, and they need us to do their best, and they need to know from us that they can do better and they can be whatever they want to be. And I think that's an important message from all of us at all times, from family to classroom to businesses, everywhere. We have a lot. Hey, I'm a product of Newport Public Schools. Hey, and I grew up here, and I think, my family's very proud of what I have been able to accomplish and do, as well as my brothers, who are 10 times more successful in what they do, but in their areas. But I just have to say that is so key and important, to have people around you that are saying, you're doing a great job, keep it up, we're there for you, and we're going to make this happen. So I think that's very, very important.
Excellent. I think that is I know everybody has taken a little bit of extra time to chat about this today, but I know it's very important. Governor, anything that we missed today that you wanted to close out with?
No, I'm just thankful. Thanks, Ryan, for taking the effort to let people know what we're doing. This is very important as well, because the messaging can't just happen in our own offices. We got to get out to the community, get our feet on the ground, and this is helpful. So, Ryan, thank you for that. And again, I'll just repeat thanking the mayor and the superintendent for their leadership on this issue. We're just starting. And that's what's exciting about this. And my dad would say, Superintendent, when he started the Boys Club in our town, my dad passed in '86, but he would always say, you show a young person you care about them, and that's a reason why they're going to be successful. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Excellent point, Governor. We appreciate it. Superintendent, anything else? No,
thank you all. I love this. This is, this is a dream come true. Everyone has education as a focus. Everyone's, saying how important it is. And we're all talking about our great children in this community and what we want to do to make sure they can be all they can be. And at the same time, they can come back, live in our community, and build a great state, community, state, the whole nine marks.
And Mayor, you get the last word here. Once you unmute yourself there. There you go.
I don't want to ruin summer for all of our students out there, but we are looking right down the pathway at back to school. And so start getting the kids around you, the kids that you run into, excited about headed back to school. It sounds like we're going to have some great news headed into the new school year. And so we're looking forward to talking more about that as soon as the news is released.
All right. Well, thank you all for taking this and taking the time to have this conversation. Really, really interesting to get everybody involved in the conversation. And we appreciate you taking the time and look forward to continuing to cover it, as well as, more importantly, continue to support it in any way possible that I can and that we can here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
All right. I want to thank Governor Dan McKee, Mayor Xay, and Superintendent Colleen Jermain for joining us today. We appreciate them taking the time. If you missed any portion of this conversation, want to watch it, want to listen to it, all available on whatsupnoop.com. Thanks for watching.